Hey, basketball fans. Welcome to your favorite WNBA show, Around the Rim, here on YouTube with your co-host, LaChina Robinson and Terrika Foster-Brasby. And we are about 25% through the season. Every team has played between like 10 and 12 games. So it's a good time for us to take a step back. And we're going to breeze through the standings a little bit just to give you some quick updates, but keeping in mind some things that are happening around the W. All-Stars coming up in July. Over the next few weeks, we'll have the announcement of the starters, the reserves, and we will also have the All-Star selection where the captains get to pick their teams. But there's some great basketball being played. And so let's just really quickly, give the fans a little bit of a blurb on how these teams are doing. And we can alternate. I'll start Vegas, you go Connecticut, so we'll go bump, bump, bump. Las Vegas Aces are 11-1. They only lost one game to the Connecticut Sun. They are on a 4-game win streak led by Jackie Young, who is an MVP candidate. Write that down. Along with, of course, Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Candace Parker, the whole nine. They're still the favorites to win the championship, and they look like they might repeat, but they're doing well.
Connecticut Sun is sitting in second place, first in the East, but second overall at 11-3. And Connecticut is surprisingly doing well despite losing their center, Brionna Jones. She has a lower left leg injury. No word from the team yet on exactly what that injury is or how long she is expected to be out, but they did play last night against Minnesota and it was a blowout. So needless to say, I think this team is going to be all right, at least for the next couple of games, if they don't have Brionna Jones.
We're sending our prayers to Bree Jones for sure. The New York Liberty is 7-3 in third place. It's been an up and down season for the Liberty. Sabrina Ionescu is coming back, working her way back from injury. Jonquel Jones has been, just still continuing to work herself into shape, also dealing with an injury. So she's hit or miss. Brianna Stewart is the MVP as of today, if the votes were being tallied. She is playing out of her mind. But the Liberty is still figuring things out. And despite all that, because they're so talented, they're in third place. So here we are.
Mm-hmm. Do you see who that is? Oh, that's the Washington Mystics, because for a minute, I was a little confused and concerned about what Washington had going on. And then all of a sudden, they win 3 games in a row. Shakira Austin completely showing out. And now they're sitting at 8-4. I feel like Washington right now is that team that you do not want to see because they are showing up and showing out at the right moment. Elena Delle Donne still playing healthy, still looking like she is getting back to that form in 2019. I'm afraid of Washington. So y'all better watch out.
And they are on a 3-game win streak. A team that's coming off of a win is the 5th place team, the Dallas Wings. They're 6-6. Really love what Latricia Trammell's doing in her first year. Arike Gumbawale has been out of sight per usual, but it's been Satu Sabli and Natasha Howard that are a dynamic combo for Dallas. If they can put it together with the D, they just got Big T back. They're playing double big with Tierra and Kalani at 6'7". That's a lot. So Dallas is doing well. On to Atlanta.
I know this is your squad, LaChina, but I got to give Atlanta so much love because Atlanta is coming off a high right now. Big win against Indiana, big win against Connecticut, big win against the Liberty. I mean, I was actually pretty shocked in my mind. I was like, oh, they're going to come in and play Connecticut. They're going to be tired. It's a game just 24 hours ago. No. Overtime win. They really are showing that they are a young team, but a smart team. The way Alicia Gray has just adapted herself into this offense. I mean, again, this is you and your team, and you cover them and you see them. But I really love this for Atlanta. They're sitting right in the middle of the pack, but I have no doubt that Tanisha Wright is going to keep grinding on them. They're a young squad, but I love the way they are moving forward right now. They're 5-6, just dropped one recently to the Dallas Wings, but they've got the Liberty coming up, and it's a tough test, but clearly they know how to win against this team.
ATL shawty. Okay, I had to do that. All right. In at number 7 is the LA Sparks, 5-7 on the season. They have lost 3 in a row, but a lot of it has had to do with illness and injury. They've been missing several players from the lineup and had to even activate some hardship contracts. So Kurt Miller doing a great job overall. Of course, Nneka Ogwumike having an all-star season. Really impressed with what Terrika Hamby has done. Lexi Brown, who's one of those players that's been missing a little bit, has been outstanding this year as well. So we'll see what happens in the second half with the Sparks. But the fact that they are in playoff position right now with some of the flux of their roster, impressive.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And
Chene, our girl Chene is missing time too.
Yes, Chene is missing time. So, but to your point about being impressed with the team, I'm certainly impressed with this team sitting at number 8, which is the Indiana Fever. And kudos to you, LaChina, because you've been saying from the beginning of the season up until now that you thought that this Indiana team could be a playoff team, and they are absolutely playing like it. Now they're sitting at 5-7, but honestly, records don't really indicate how well this team has played. Aaliyah Boston has adapted to being in this league better than I think most people imagined. It would not surprise me whatsoever if she ended up being an all-star this year. Kelsey Mitchell, I can feel when I watch her that she has a team around her that supports her, a coach around her that supports her, and she's playing at an all-time high. Even last night against the Seattle Storm, she scored 25.7 threes. Sis pull-up game is so stupid. She just dribbles and pulls up, and it's just the release is so quick. It's crazy. You can't do nothing with Kelsey. And so I love what this team is doing. I love the way Christy Size has this team, having them playing very confidently. So 5-7 for now, but watch out because Indiana can and does compete with the top contenders in this league.
I love it. I love it. All right. Our last 4 teams are struggling a little bit. The Chicago Sky at 5-8, the Minnesota Lynx at 4-9, Seattle Storm at 3-9, and Phoenix Mercury at 2-9. Chicago Sky I love their personnel, the way things were coming together beginning of the season. I think losing Rebecca Gardner was really a blow. Mm-hmm. Losing Isabel Harrison, really a blow. And so though they have Ka and Marina and Courtney, Elizabeth Williams, Dana, of course, it's going to be a work in progress. Alana Smith is having a great season for them. But my mother called me the other day and was like, I feel bad for James Wade.
Mom,
is this the headline for you right now? She really is concerned about James. She is like sad that James has fallen and tumbled down the mountain since the championship, but it happens. It's sports. Players leave, rebuilds happen. So that's where Chicago is. Now jump on Minnesota real quick. Rafisa Collier is the headliner there, no doubt, but lots of injuries. Diamond Miller, Aerial Powers across the board, but Jessica Shepard. But watch out because Minnesota is a team that's competing every night. They just don't have consistent personnel. But when they do, they could definitely make a second half push.
Yeah, Seattle Storm filling out that 11th spot at 3-9 right now. And honestly, this team, again, is just a team that is going to be looking forward to finding themselves, learning how to play together, losing 2 big stars in Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart. But Jewel Lloyd is a walking bucket right now. She's leading the league in scoring, leading the league in 3-pointers made. Like, if Jewel is going to help have this team, I love the way that we're seeing rookie Jordan Horston play. Ezzy Magagor, all-star caliber player, period. So no worries there. I think Noelle Quinn understood what it was going to take coming into this game. They're on a 2-game losing streak right now, dropping their last 2 to Indiana and Connecticut, but watch out for Seattle. They will find a way to make themselves even more competitive and be in this conversation at the very least for 8 spot, I believe, before the end of the season. And the Phoenix Mercury sitting at the number 12 spot at 2-9. But keep in mind, this is also a Phoenix team that is playing right now without Brittany Griner. I'm not exactly sure what her timetable is to come back. I don't know if you know LaChina, but I just kind of feel and have always felt that this was a team that was going to just always have to play with a little bit of extra oomph this year just to get reacclimated, because in so many ways, for me, it is still a very new team. Still missing point guard Skylar Diggins-Smith, who's out on maternity leave. Now again,
Diana Taurasi's out.
Diana Taurasi is out, exactly. But first off, I'm going to definitely give some love, though, to Shook Sutton because she's stepping up and playing very good basketball right now. Sophie Cunningham is trying to continue to play at a high level. So it's not for lack of competition, just having some bad luck when it comes to injuries at this point. We say all that to say that there are new names, new faces. But the two that stick out to me is, as we mentioned, retirement, Minnesota and Seattle. And the reason that these two stick out to me are just because of who it was that was lost. And by lost, we mean who it was that has decided to end their career in the WNBA. When you think about that super team of Minnesota with Maya and Rebecca and Lindsay and Sil and Simone, like when you think about the kind of legacy that left within that Lynx organization. And you think about the same thing with Seattle, being a team that, you know, had, again, a legacy of winning. You now say to yourself, well, fans should know that it's going to take time, and fans should know that it's a new era and people have to gel. And like, there's this expectation that we have of fans to just know that this is what's going to happen. But the truth is, they don't really understand it in the way that we do. Fans want you to win and win now, right? And so you're looking at these organizations, Minnesota and Seattle specifically. Minnesota, I believe, is 4-9, Seattle 3-9, coming off of a tough loss last night against Indiana. And you say to yourself, how much pressure are on these young stars to truly perform and turn these teams around, right? How much grace are we giving them to be able to bring these programs back up to the level and the expectation and the standard that had been set there to continue that legacy, right? So I look at a player like Napheesa Collier, former Rookie of the Year, player who has literally played lights out. I heard Cheryl Reeves say a lot this season, you know, I want to see her be more aggressive. I want to see her close more. I want to see her be a bit more confident when she's taking her open shots. Like, and I feel like over the last few games, we're seeing that. But then we also have, you know, a team that has no Jessica Shepard, a team that has, you know, no Diamond Miller, who was the #2 pick, who was supposed to be someone very important and impactful to this franchise, right? So like, is it really on feed that this team isn't really performing? Or like, where is the grace, right? Like, and I think that's the biggest question that I have when I think of this. It's just, where is that grace when it comes to our younger stars and having the responsibility of needing to turn around a franchise?
It's a lot. It's a lot. And there's a particular amount of pressure on the two organizations that you named in Seattle and Minnesota, because they have each won 4 championships. Like, they are the top of the top, right? Yep. And so there's an expectation from fans, but also there's just a cultural expectation of this is what we do. But when you look at what they lost, you don't just bounce back from losing that many Hall of Famers if you're Minnesota. You don't just bounce back from losing that many Hall of Famers if you are Seattle, right? Future Hall of Famers, if even in, you know, Stewie, who's gone to another team, but she's a future Hall of Famer. So those particular organizations, there's a lot on the shoulders. But here is what I really believe. This has to happen, and it has to happen in a timely manner in order to sustain winning. And what I mean by that is, though we do love our vets and we want them to play as long as possible, and I am just blown away by the longevity of some of the careers of Diana Taurasi playing at 40 plus, you know, Sue Bird doing the same last season, you know, Sylvia Fowles being, I mean, she was leading the league and rebounding in her last season. Like, it's crazy how WNBA players have been able to extend their careers, and they've done it in various ways. Some of them stopped going overseas after a while just to try to preserve their bodies. They're learning how to take care of their bodies better. In the case of Candace Parker, who, you know, has found the right recipe, if you will, to keep her playing at a high level despite all her injuries. So that is awesome. But there also has to be a step down plan, okay? Because when players retire, when they leave, even Candace Parker leaving LA, hasn't really been the same since she left, right? Nneka Ogwumike has been fantastic, but they got some things to figure out. There is a gaping hole when you take these players off of those rosters. Sylvia in the middle, like literally gaping hole on the interior for Minnesota. Yep. So it's like you almost have to refine and redefine your identity, but there has to be a plan in place where these younger players are getting the opportunity to lead even before the vets are gone. We talked to Jewel Lloyd, and what did she say? I was watching the leaders before me. So she had an opportunity to learn, but I'm sure there was a plan, or at least there should be. But there also has to be a logical roster plan. Like, how are we going to turn this over? This is the window in which Sue might retire, Diana might retire, Sylvia Fowles might retire, Tamika Catchings might retire. I mean, look at Indiana. They have not been able to recover since Catch left. I believe they make the playoffs this year. However, a lot goes into it. So to your point, do I think that there should be pressure on these younger players? No. Are they performing up to par? Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to step up and just, okay, now it's your team, Kalia Copper. What? Like, it takes time. And so it's a learning process. There has to be, a lot of patience, right? You don't just lose Courtney Vandersloot and all of a sudden turn into a playoff team. Like, it takes time. So I while I'm excited for the new faces, the new energy for these players that have stepped up to the challenge, there also has to be reasonable expectations and a plan in place for these franchises for all of this to work and for you to be able to sustain excellence.
Yep. And you actually drive home to my next point, which is when I'm questioning if the pressure is on the player, I also question how much of that pressure should also be on the coach. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly to the point of, in these particular organizations, and I'm cutting a little slack for Noe because she hasn't been head coach as long as Cheryl Reeve has in terms of the long. I mean, Cheryl's been coach of that team for years, had the designation of being general manager and head coach for a long period of time as well. And so I am of the strong belief that when we have legacy franchises like these, there has to be some kind of onus that is on the front offices and coaches to recognize what that plan needs to be. And that is the biggest issue that I am finding. Although we had a conversation about, some of the comments about rookie players and not being able to make a roster and how good our vets still are, I do feel like in some small percentage, there is a nice discussion that should be had with, if we aren't looking at ways to extend our rosters, if we aren't looking at ways to involve more newer players and develop more newer players, then what does that plan or that turnaround look like? And so it warms my heart to see a player like a Jewel Lloyd or a player like Nafisa Collier that's dropping, 28 plus games of 20 plus points. But I don't want to feel like a young player has so much pressure. And I mean, when I talk about Fee, she just literally had a baby last year, and I know that her particular, skill set isn't something that she's thinking, oh, I'm going to come in here and I'm not going to play. But I mean, from a human body's perspective, there should really only be so much that is expected of a player coming back from maternity leave, right? So, I mean, there has to be some form of accountability on our front offices and on our coaches when it comes to franchises not really making the jump, because there hasn't been a plan put in place, more so than on the young players that now are expected to lead these particular organizations.
Well, and you have to give some of that to the CBA, some of that blame, if you will. I just had a good conversation with Shavonte Zealous, who played many years in the league, was a champion with Indiana. And what's happening with the CBA now is the middle of the line veteran. Okay, so like, on the CBA, you can only afford so many vets that are at the top, right? And so what rosters are looking like now is, okay, we're going to put all our money up here. And then all we can afford is rookies here at the bottom, right? And so what happens is that veteran that is, that's supposed to make vet men, and that's a little bit more than a rookie salary, is getting cut out. And therefore, you don't have that leadership in other positions, because leadership doesn't just have to come from the all-stars. Like it can come from any player that has played in the league at a veteran level, once they have gotten up in years. That wisdom can come from a number of places. Like, look at Danielle Robinson. It's been a while since she's made all-star, right?
She's the first person I thought about too.
But it is her experience in the league that Atlanta has found a way to keep that is absolutely helping that young team. No question, right? They did it last year with Kia Vaughn. Now Kia's back on player development. And you see that, right? Sometimes where it's like, okay, Brionna January is in Connecticut. So they're bringing it, but it's different from a coaching standpoint than having a player that's a vet. So the CBA, I just wanted to say, is some of the blame for that too. And that because of the way it's set up, the middleman in the WNBA is being squeezed out. And that, again, in my opinion, brings us back to the conversation of roster expansion, soft salary caps, salary cap increase, all of those things.
Well, I have had my rant today. That was my rant for today, LaChina. I just want so much better for these players and these friends. I don't want these young stars to feel so overwhelmed with responsibility that they miss opportunities to have fun and miss opportunities to enjoy this chance that they have, which we see a lot of the vets and true vets, much older than 5 or 6 years, talk about when they've had these experiences playing on these teams. So there's my rant for today. I'm done.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Around the Rim. And as always, you can tweet us at Around the Rim on Twitter. I am at LaChina Robinson, and she is at She Knows Sports, no underscore. See how I got that? And you can find us on YouTube. So we will see you guys next week.